Hi, my name's Alex Bowyer, and I'm here to present our paper, Human-GDPR Interaction, Practical Experiences of Accessing Personal Data. The paper is focused on the power imbalance between data holders and individuals. People don't have sufficient access to their data to be able to understand how it's processed, shared, and used. In 2018, the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, came into force, granting you the right to a copy of your data and to explanations of how that data is used in decision-making, backed up by designed-to-hurt fines for non-compliance. Prior research has indicated that company compliance with GDPR is poor. Our research takes a human-centric stance and evaluates the experience of using the GDPR to better understand and control your own personal data. We took 10 people on a guided journey through the GDPR data access process across 3 interviews spaced over several months. In our first interview with each participant, we sensitized them to the problem space, then did a life sketching exercise where they identified the different companies and types of data in their life and selected 4 to 5 target organizations. In the second interview, 2 or 3 weeks later, we invited them to tell us how they felt about those target companies and to identify specific goals and hopes for each one. We'd investigated the privacy policies of those companies, so we then reviewed and discussed them with the participants. At the end of the second interview, we gave participants a comprehensive GDPR request email to send to each company. Given that GDPR allows 30 days for a response, the final interview took place 4 to 6 weeks later. During this final 2-hour interview, we asked participants questions to scrutinize the breadth and quality of the response, particularly in respect to the data collection and handling companies described in their privacy policies. As part of this, participants reviewed their previously stated feelings towards the company and considered whether their hopes had been met. For various reasons, some of the GDPR requests did not complete. Of 41 total requests that were made, 32 resulted in data being obtained. Based on our early research, we identified 5 main types of personal data: data you've volunteered, data that's observed about you, data that's been derived or inferred about you from other known data, data acquired from external sources, and metadata. On this slide, we see an overview of the completeness of the data returned for each of these types, as judged by the participants. Across all the data, there was a tendency towards incompleteness or absence, and this was particularly the case for the most valued types: derived, acquired, and metadata. To understand the GDPR experience, we carried out a thematic analysis of the GDPR process, leading to 3 main findings which we explain in the paper. The first of these is insufficient transparency from companies. People want to know and understand the data held about them and how it's used, but they felt left in the dark. 100% of the returns were judged incomplete when compared with privacy policy expectations and GDPR rights. In 78% of cases, participants were unable to meet their goals. Overall, GDPR seemed to have been treated like a box-ticking exercise. In this slide, we see those participant goals falling into 2 distinct groups, with those relating to accountability shown in red and those relating to personal benefit shown in blue. In all cases, we saw most goals remaining unmet after GDPR. The second finding was that returned data was confusing. People wanted to reflect on their data and use it to gain self-insight and make better choices, but they found the data hard to relate to and often lacking in context or explanation. The data formats used were too technical and hard to understand, or were unusable and unhelpful. People need information summaries and clarity about how to correct or delete your data. The third finding relates to the relationship with data holders. Participants felt forced to trust service providers with their data, and this affected how they felt about the organizations, particularly companies with a business model built around data. They wanted to use GDPR to establish whether that trust was well placed. What we saw was painful or unprofessional processes around GDPR causing distrust, especially where companies seemed evasive. Here we can see some of the changes to trust and perceived individual power, with non-compliance, missing or non-useful data, and poor handling causing distrust in 52% of cases, but with some participants reporting an increase in trust following a more positive GDPR experience. In most cases, participants felt that their individual power remained unchanged. However, in 29% of cases, people actually felt more powerless after trying GDPR. I will briefly summarise the implications of our research as we see them. However, we do encourage you to read the paper, which covers all of this in much more detail. For policymakers, we recommend more enforcement of individual complaints. We also think there should be guidelines and prescribed standard formats for data returns. and we think that compliance should be considered in terms of giving people an ongoing understanding rather than the one-time delivery of files. For data holders, we advise that opaque data practices can damage trust, and efforts to make understandable data readily available can improve customer loyalty. If companies were to go even further by involving users and treating data as a co-owned resource, that data could become more accurate and more valuable. And we believe that data awareness is growing. There is increasing public demand for workable personal data ecosystems. This represents a business opportunity. Finally, for individuals, we urge continued engagement with personal data. Providers are getting value from your data that you're not. Effective data access is essential for making informed provider choices, and even a poor GDPR response still raises your awareness and can be used to push for better data rights. In conclusion, our key contributions are that GDPR compliance remains poor and data responses are hard to understand and use. The process is not empowering. We offer a detailed look at the disappointing, frustrating experience of GDPR data access, and we identify how this can impact brand trust. We've shown which types of data are most often lacking in GDPR responses, and some of the main goals that motivate people to make GDPR requests. Finally, we want to briefly highlight where this might go next. Bespoke handling of GDPR requests does not scale well. So if more people use GDPR and reject poor responses, this demand could force the development of new models for thinking about data, as we are starting to see with the emergence of download dashboards. There are many possibilities for new avenues of research in this space. It's exciting to see the GDPR being used in new ways, such as gig economy drivers comparing responses to get collective power, or Citrus DigiPower project I'm involved with that sees politicians making GDPR requests to shine a light on the hidden data brokering ecosystem. This has been Human-GDPR Interaction. I urge you to read the paper, and if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for listening.